Hello viewers, and welcome to another special video production from Cardboard of the Rings, a bi-weekly podcast about the Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. This is yet another episode in the LOTR LCG progression series. This is Mitch, whom you might recognize, and joining me as always is Matthew.
Hello everyone.
And it's been a little while since we've put out one of these videos, and Matthew, what exactly has gone on in the last couple weeks?
Well, I was out of state. I was with family in Oregon, and believe it or not, I did not have internet access. I saw a couple of commenters say that, internet is sort of ubiquitous and everywhere, and I should have been playing anyway, but I literally did not have internet. But I'm back in the land of the living, and ready to do some more episodes.
Sounds good to me. So people have been literally clamoring for more videos in this series. We're excited to finally be back. While Matthew was in Oregon, it was about a 2.5-hour drive away, so I actually seized the opportunity to go down and meet him. We were able to play some X-Wing, some Death Angel. We met in person, ate some tater gems, and good times were had by all. So
yeah, that was fun.
Right, and Matthew's a good enough sport to continue doing this series.
Even after having met you in person.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, much appreciated. And Matthew, what scenario are we going to be doing here today? So, what's happened since last time?
So last time, we finally conquered the Hill Troll in our second attempt at Journey Along the Anduin. And this time, we will be attempting the third and final quest of the original core set, which is Escape from Dol Guldur. The first two quests of the core set really revolve around King Thranduil sending us on this urgent sort of quest to deliver a message to the Lady Galadriel. And then this third quest, the message has been delivered, and Lady Galadriel is then asking us to investigate some weirdness or some sneakiness or whatever. We don't really know, but we're investigating Dol Guldur and to see what's going on there at the Necromancer's Tower. And that's pretty much what this quest is all about.
Right, so we've finally gotten to our fourth episode here. This is going to be the ultimate scenario from the core set, Escape from Dol Guldur. We've got a lot of our play field already set up here, so you can see we've got our quest cards sitting out here. The very first quest card has some specific setup instructions for us. So there's 3 different objective cards, and this is something that we have not seen yet in the core set. So you can see I've already got them spread out here on the table. We've got Gandalf's map. We have the Dungeon Torch, and we also have the Shadow Key. And it's going to be our goal in this scenario to, over time, gradually collect all 3 of these objectives that are going to help us accomplish this scenario. And the basic premise is one of our heroes here on the table is going to get captured. We eventually bust them out of the Necromancer's Fortress of Dol Guldur. At that point, this Nazgul here, the only Nazgul we've seen up to date in the game, through the Heirs of Numenor Deluxe expansion, it comes out, it fights the players, and once we've successfully vanquished this Nazgul, rescued our hero, and finished the third phase of the quest, then we'll have, been able to count this as a victory. So hopefully everything will go according to plan. This is probably, well, I don't know if it's really the most difficult scenario in the core sets. It's very, very difficult to do solo, but as 2 players, we'll have to see how things go. So I guess at this point, shall we go ahead and start breaking down our decks for the viewers?
So before we take a look at our decks, Mitch, I think you're missing a certain Nazgul that shares a nickname with you, the Witch-King in Massing and Osgiliath. So we've actually, I think, seen 2 Nazgul so far in the game.
That's right. So it looks like I spoke a little too soon, but yes, there's certainly the Witch-King. So
Right.
All right.
How could you forget? Anywho, our decks. I'm sort of back to a variation of the deck I played in the first scenario, which was a combination of lore and tactics. I don't know if I have too much to say. I think the thing of most note is the fact that Forest Snare is not included in my deck. It's a great card. It certainly would have been useful on the Hill Troll during our games to sort of keep him from attacking us. But in this quest, the latest sort of fac or errata for the Nazgul says he can't have attachments placed on him. I'm sure Mitch will be putting that on the screen for you. So he's pretty much one of the bigger baddies in the game, but can't be forced snared, which makes sense, as you can see in the card art. He's sort of flying around. I can't think of what those beasts are called.
A fell beast.
That's right. Is that all their name is? I thought it was something fancier, but he's flying around, so the force snare not gonna work so much. So that was taken out. Protector of Lorien was added in. I think the biggest issue with this deck is going to be paying for the lore allies. They are on the higher side of cost, and so I've got the Horn of Gondor that I'm hoping to draw and hoping to place on Barivor. But if that doesn't work, there's always Theodred, who might be able to throw a resource or two my way in order to pay for some of the more expensive lore allies.
Sure, and then going ahead and taking my deck, just like you mentioned, it's the same sphere setup as I played in Passage Through Mirkwood. I'm going to be running the heroes Aragorn, Éowyn, and Theodred, and my hope here is, since we're going to be losing one of our characters as the prisoner, we're going to be at a little bit of an action disadvantage compared to other quests. So what my thoughts are is I want to use Aragorn just because he's got that ability to get some additional actions. Theodred will be able to toss either him that bonus resource, maybe throw Éowyn that resource, Barivor if you're really desperate for some lore resources. I've got a lot of powerful questing characters in this deck, like Faramir, Gandalf, Northern Tracker, a lot of just auto-include spirit events like cancellation of shadow effects, cancellation of when revealed, a little bit of threat reduction, some card draw. I've also got a common cause in this deck, just in case Aragorn is, for example, ready at the end of the round and there's nothing else for him to do. I can give up his action in order to throw a free action to another character. I'm definitely not afraid of using multiple copies of unique cards. As you can see, I've got 3 copies of Calabrian Stone, Steward of Gondor, and some things like that. So we'll have to see who our prisoner ends up being, but I think this should be a pretty solid chance for restricting ourselves to only using core set cards to try and get through this scenario. So I guess, shall we go ahead and start our game, Matthew?
Sure.
Alright, so starting things out, as you can see, I've gone ahead and set my threat at a start of 29, and Matthew is beginning at 30. At this point, why don't we go ahead and shuffle our decks and get our opening hands before we do any of the setup. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my beginning 6 cards, and I'm actually very happy with my starting hand.
Yeah, mine's actually not too bad either.
Right. I'm just praying that that the prisoner is not my spirit character.
Right.
So I guess I'm cool with my hand. Are you good with yours?
Indeed I am.
Okay, so now that we know our hands, now we do the setup portion of the encounter deck. So of course, to save time making this video, I've gone ahead and laid out a lot of these things here. We've got the 3 objective cards sitting out here in play. The Nazgul of Dol Guldur is face up but out of play, so just ignore it. That's not our staging area here. And the last part of our setup here is we're going to shuffle the encounter deck and attach 1 to each objective card. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle the encounter deck now. And before I place those objectives, let's look at these objectives really quick. So Gandalf's map is going to be, first of all, guarded, second of all, restricted. And for each of these objectives, we've got to collect them at some point. And by doing that, we raise our threat by 2, and then we attach it to a hero. Each of them have a specific detriment. So Gandalf's map reads, the attached hero cannot attack or defend. Dungeon Torch reads, at the end of each round, whichever player controls that hero raises their threat by an additional 2. And then the Shadow Key is at the end of each round, the hero it's attached to takes 1 damage. So each of these are a little bit detrimental to hold, and depending on which part of the quest we're on, we've got to be holding a certain number of them in order to proceed. So why don't we go ahead and attach our encounter cards now. So attached to Gandalf's map is going to be a caught in a web. So you are the highest threat level. Which of your heroes would you like this awful attachment attached to?
Yeah, this is... I should watch what I'm about to say, but I was going to say this can't be worse. Because not only am I going to have a hero quasi out of commission, one of us is going to have a hero get captured. I suppose I would hope that the captured hero is the one that's caught in the web.
Right.
Because then that's not quite as bad. Good grief. I don't want it on anyone, but I suppose we'll put it on Gimli.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that to Gimli, and that is certainly not the best start here. Something to keep in mind is if I'd have had Eleanor in my deck, she'd have been able to cancel this. We would have had to reveal a different card, but still.
Yeah.
Dungeon Torch, its attached encounter card is going to be a Dol Guldur Beastmaster, which is just going to hang out in the staging area for a little while. And last but not least, Shadow Key gets a Tower Gate. So a little location here, 2 threat. As soon as we travel there, we've got to put some Orc guards in play. Would be excellent Legolas fodder, but that caught in a web is definitely not the best way to start this scenario. So now that we've finished the 1A quest phase, we've got to move on to 1B. And it reads, when revealed, randomly select 1 hero card out of all 6 of these and turn it face down. This character is considered the prisoner, cannot be used, damaged, collect resources until it is rescued. And a huge restriction for us here is we cannot play more than 1 ally card each round, and we cannot move on to the next phase until we claim 1 objective card. So we probably won't be doing that until we already have those 9 quest tokens on here, but let's go ahead and see which of our heroes is selected. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a random number generator here, and I'm going to generate a number between 1 and 6. So let's go ahead and see, starting from left to right, which our captured hero is. Alright, so it looks like our result here is Barivore, and I guess, what are your initial thoughts, Matthew, about losing Barivore?
Well, losing anyone isn't great. Although I guess it allows me to have, the silver lining is it allows me to keep my 2 tactics heroes generating resources, so I can at least pay for those cards. She's only lost for a little while, or imprisoned, I should say, for a little while. So, losing a hero is never ideal, but we'll just have to make do.
Yeah, I think the major concern for me here is just the inability to play Miner of the Iron Hills. So this caught in a web might become a big problem for us. Yeah. So we'll have to see if we end up able to pull through. But I guess with that said, shall we go ahead and move on to our very first round?
Sure.
Okay, and I suppose should I start the game as first player or? Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and start first round, and let's move right on into our resource phase. So 1 resource for each hero. Draw yourself a card. As I get a cancel when revealed effect. It's like it's just mocking me. Anyway, so I've got my card. Let's transition into planning. And let's see. Do you have an ally that you're going to be putting into play?
I could, but I don't have to.
Well, I suppose I could play a pretty garbage ally, or you could play something maybe a little bit more useful. I'm not... I don't know.
You can go ahead and play the ally. I'll get it next turn.
Well, let's see.
Unless you have something better you want to play.
Well, I suppose I'll let you play the ally. I might... Yeah, I'll just let you play it if you want.
Okay.
Alright, so I think I'm going to go ahead and hold off on playing an ally, and what I think I am going to go ahead and do is a whole lot of nothing.
Okay.
So why don't you go ahead and take your turn?
Well, then I will play our 1 ally for the turn, and that will be the veteran X-Hand.
Perfect. Okay, and that's all from you, I suppose.
Yep.
So why don't we go ahead and move into questing. And I think what I'm going to do is we've got 4 threat out there in the staging area. I could either do 5 or I could do 7. I imagine you're probably not going to be sending anything.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. Okay. Keep in mind that if we end up doing a little bit of combat, like if we want to get rid of the Dol Guldur Beastmaster, I've probably got a card in my hand that next turn you're going to be able to ready Gimli a little bit more freely. Okay. So you won't have to worry about the, massive resource drain from that caught in a web.
Cool.
So, Alright, why don't I go ahead and commit all of my characters to the quest, which is going to be a total of 7 points. I'm going to go ahead and trigger Theodred's ability on Aowen, and I'm going to pull 1 resource off of Aragorn in order to ready him. So I'm going to be able to do a Sentinel defense for you.
Cool.
And I think that's it.
Okay.
So, and I assume you're committing nothing?
Yep.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and do our staging, and mercifully this is only going to be 2 cards. So staging card number 1 is the Necromancer's Reach. So it's going to be 2 damage. I'm fine with letting this by.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 damage on Aowen and Theodred. That would have been a great card at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Card number 2 is a Dungeon Jailer. And what's kind of scary about this guy is even though his threat value is very low, if he's sitting out here in the staging area, if we ever manage to quest unsuccessfully, one of these objective cards goes into the encounter deck, which basically equates to you're playing an hour, you know, add an hour to the duration of your game, or you're just not going to be able to win. So, nasty little character here. But that's it for staging. We're up against 5 threats, and that means we're going to go ahead and make 2 quest progress.
All right.
I suppose at this point we can move on to traveling, and we've got a few... Well, we have 1 option here. We could go to Tower Gate, but then we'd have to put some Orc guards in play. They don't attack for much, since they're just 1 attack, 1 defense, 1 hit points. But they might do undefended attacks. We could use Legolas tricks. I've got a questing character in my hand, but it's going to be a little while until I'd be able to play a guy like that. Let's see. I guess, what do you think we can do against these enemies here? How much attack strength could you bring to bear?
Yeah, I was just trying to see if I could kill the Dungeon Jailer outright, but Gimli's only at 2. Too bad he wasn't exhausted. Well, if he was exhausted, he couldn't attack. I was like, he could have got an extra attack there. But he's at 2. Legolas is at 3 for 5, plus 2 from the Veteran Axe Hand for 7. So I'm 1 attack strength shy of being able to kill the Jailer outright.
Okay.
But I would be able to kill the Beastmaster.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and deal with the Beastmaster?
Okay.
Because it's 2 threat, whereas the Jailer is just 1.
Okay.
So shall we skip our travel phase?
Sure.
Because I think what's probably going to end up happening is... I don't know. I guess I'm not too concerned about us failing the quest, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Especially with Aowen's ability.
Exactly.
So,
and I think next turn I'll probably be able to deal with that Jailer a smidge more easily.
Cool. Perfect. Well, so Dol Guldur Beastmaster. For our engagement, he's the only one we're going to pull down. Of course, the Jailer's engagement cost is way too high for us to have to worry about. Let's go ahead and do a shadow card to the Beastmaster here. For defense... oh, well, I guess he gets 2 shadow cards. For defense, I'm going to go ahead and use Aragorn and pray for the best. So let's go ahead and see what we have as shadow cards. Card number 1 is Ungoliant Spawn. So I'm going to have to raise my threat by 4, unless I want to cancel this effect. Although really, I'm pretty happy that this is the way that we're seeing Ungoliant Spawn instead of an enemy. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and take that threat gain.
Okay.
Card number 2 is Necromancer's Pass.
Cool.
So no effect. And that is basically going to mean 3 attack strength versus 2 defense.
Yep.
Aragorn takes 1 damage.
Yep.
Could have been much worse. So how do you want to retaliate?
Well, in order to kill him, I have to send everyone. So,
okay.
For 7.
So, total of 7, but Dol Guldur Beastmaster is slain. Legolas's ability activates, and we get our 2 quest progress. So, not too bad.
Yeah.
All right, so I suppose that brings us to refresh, which is Control R. I'll go ahead and make you first player. I'll raise my threat to 34. Something else to keep in mind is, as opposed to Journey Along the Anduin, we're not really too concerned about what our threat value is. So even though it's 34, I'm not concerned about a hill troll coming and attacking me. I'm not concerned about evil storm or anything like that. So
Yeah.
we'll do our resources. I'll draw a card. Yeah, I'm sure this will come in handy when an ally leaves play, if you can guess what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is your planning, my good sir.
Okay, so Gimli is exhausted because of caught in the web. I'm not going to pay the 2. Let's see, and I'm going to put the Blade of Gondolin on Legolas.
Okay, perfect. Which will be very handy since our dungeon jailer here is an orc.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what I was referring to earlier. And
Sure.
that is all I'm going to do.
Okay, so from me, I think I'm going to go ahead and... Let's see. First off, I'll pay 2 resources from Aowen in order to put an unexpected courage on Gimli.
Thank you.
Now, even though that web is sitting there, you'll be able to ready him whenever you want, if you want to take control of that. I suppose I should go ahead and... Well, I think I'll use this opportunity to put out a Guard of the Citadel as well.
Okay.
Not the strongest ally by any means, but I don't... it's always good to have additional blockers. So I'll get that out now. And at this point, I think that's all for my planning. Shall we move on to questing?
Sounds good.
Okay, so you are the first to commit. I assume you're not going to be sending anyone?
Yep, not sending anyone.
And then really the only thing here is well, I guess you might as well just leave Gimli exhausted if another Necromancer's Reach comes up.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Wise. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing as last round. So I'm going to be sending a total of 7. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and send that resource over to Aowen. Until I can get Steward of Gondor, the spirit resources are just fantastic. Okay, so we're going to be sending a total of 7. And why don't we go ahead and see what we get for staging. So card number 1 is... a King Spider. So this is going to be each player has to choose and exhaust 1 character. It only takes 4, attack to kill. What are you feeling about this?
I'm going to exhaust my axe hand.
Okay, so it's not worth canceling. I guess I've certainly got a garbage ally to exhaust. And it's 3 attack. I suppose you... Well, you could technically have, say, Legolas defend against it, and then Gimli could... Well, he's only 3 attack. Or 2.
Right.
Oh, so that's just miserable. Well, should I cancel that effect? I guess really the only other thing I'd really want to save cancellation effects for is just another caught in a web.
Yeah. You could... I mean, maybe it's too late at this point, but you could have readied Aragorn unless you were saving that resource.
Yeah, I was figuring I would just hold on to that resource in case an ally was leaving play, and, I didn't really count on my 1 ally here being exhausted. We could do an undefended attack, and I could just cancel the shadow effect as another possibility.
That works.
So, I suppose that's probably the safest thing.
Okay.
So shall we plan on that?
Sure.
Okay, so that's card number 1. Card number 2 is going to be an Endless Caverns. So first of all, Doomed 1. So we each have to increase our threat by 1. First time we've seen that keyword. And then secondly, it surges. So we've got to reveal another card here. Which is going to be a Hummerhorns. Which, yeah, that is an absolutely nasty card. Fortunately, we're nowhere near 40 threats, and it's a very low threat creature. I'm happy to see this as not a shadow card. But it looks like that's our staging. We're going to be against 5, 6, 7 threat, so we're going to break even, it looks like. So, all right. Well, there's certainly plenty of cards in play.
Yeah.
So, shall we move on to travel? We've got the Tower Gates, and we've got Endless Caverns. What are you thinking we should do?
I suppose, the Endless Cavern seems more benign.
Yeah, so the Endless Caverns is really nothing. The Tower Gate will be able to get rid of it, assuming, Legolas kills something.
Mm-hmm.
But then we'll have those additional enemies attacking us.
Yeah.
If I could just, I guess if I were to draw Steward of Gondor next turn, then I'd immediately be able to get rid of Tower Gates. I suppose shall we just go to Endless Caverns?
Sure.
Okay, so it's not too threatening, but at least we're doing something. If one of us maybe draws a Grey Wizard, we can get rid of Hummerhorns.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's that. Alright, so next we're at Engagement, and which of these enemies shall we get rid of? We've got the King Spider with 2 threats, which is going to be automatically engaging with us, and we've also got that Dungeon Jailer that's just sitting there in the staging area.
Yeah.
So King Spider by default will come and attack you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that's, you can't defend against much more than that, and I don't want to do 2 undefended attacks. So right, I think I'm just going to take the spider, and that's it.
Sure. Okay, so you'll just let that spider come on down to you, and let's go ahead and move on to combat. So Shadow card is now assigned, and how do you want to deal with this King Spider?
Well, Gimli's been readied with Unexpected Courage, and I'm going to hope for, let's see, Legolas just isn't enough to kill it on his own, because the blade only gives him increased attack when it's an orc, sadly.
Right.
I certainly...
I suppose you could have Legolas defend. You could do undefended to Gimli.
Right.
I've got a little bit of insurance in my hand.
Okay. Let's do undefended for Gimli.
Okay, so let's go ahead and see what this card is. So let's flip it. And it's no effect. So Necromancer's Reach.
Right, and we know that that's going away.
Right. So we're going to have to assign 3 damage to Gimli. And now you're free to retaliate against this pretty weak little creature.
Right. And they'll both swing.
Alright, so I think that's going to be a total of, 8 damage. So it's at -4. King Spider is killed. Legolas triggers to put 2 progress tokens on Endless Caverns. And Blade of Gondolin triggers to finish Endless Caverns.
Yep.
So looks like we've got 4 threats sitting in our staging area. And again, we're probably not going to want to grab one of these objectives until we've already got the 9 progress tokens. So shall we go ahead and move on to Refresh?
Sounds good.
Alright, so ready all your characters. Boost your threat by 1. Please make me first player. And I'll go ahead and draw a card, do my resources, and I'm on to planning. So do you have an ally that you're planning on putting into play this turn?
I could, but not critical for me to do so, I don't think.
Okay. Something interesting to keep in mind is if we, for example, draw another Tower Gate, or there's some sort of emergency where we're having an absolute questing emergency, I could potentially sneak a ranger into play to really devastate locations in the staging area.
Okay.
But hopefully I'll just come across a wizard at some point.
Okay.
But I suppose overall, for my planning, I'm not going to do anything.
Okay.
If I can get 4 spirit resources.
Right.
Alright, so what are you going to do?
Well, I certainly could play an ally. There's a piece of equipment that might come in handy, but I can't play that yet. I'd have to wait till next turn. So I'm wondering if it's more beneficial to get out an ally that spends resources. I hate having Beravor as the prisoner. Again, there's no good character to be the prisoner, but drawing lore cards and they're just sitting dead in my hand. I think I'm going to also hold off on playing anything. Okay.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on into questing. And I think I'm going to go ahead and send all of my characters.
Okay.
I'm going to trigger Theodred's ability for Eowyn. And this time I am going to spend 1 resource off of Aragorn to ready him. And I suppose, well, I'm going to go ahead and leave my Guard of the Citadel open just in case another one of those King Spiders comes off the encounter deck.
Okay.
And I think that's all I'm going to do. So I've got 2, 6, 7 committed to the quest.
Okay.
And how about you? Anything?
Nope.
Okay. So let's go ahead and do our staging, and let's pray it's nothing too awful. Card number 1 is a Tower Gate. And now that combo I talked about is looking pretty appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Card number 2 is going to be a Great Forest Web.
Okay.
So it's going to be, let's see, a total of 6, 7, 8 threat that we're up against.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to save that sneak card. So I think I'm just going to end up ditching a card to Aowen's ability so we break even instead.
Okay.
So,
and I can chuck a card, I think, not doing me any good in the short term.
Yeah, I guess since Barivore is, nowhere to be found, it's probably not going to be the end of the world if you're losing him.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, his purpose was just to be a chump blocker anyway, not really for his ability. So.
Right. In a 2-player game, not nearly as good. So it looks like we're going to go ahead and commit a total of 8 to the quest, which means we're able to break even with the encounter deck once again. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to travel. So we've got a few options here.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that I'm interested in is maybe the Great Forest Web.
Mm-hmm.
And we could do this, but we'd have to exhaust some heroes.
Right.
And we're probably going to want to kill that Dungeon Jailer this turn.
Yep.
Shall we just leave the Great Forest Web in the staging area?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So let's go ahead and pass travel up without doing anything. We'll go to engagement. So Dungeon Jailer. Let's see. Shall we have that engage with you? I'd be happy.
I like how you give it to me before you even ask the question. But yes, we can absolutely engage the Jailer.
Well, it would have been kind of nice if, my Guard of the Citadel had Sentinel. In which case, it would be nice if he left play.
Right.
But it's not going to be the end of the world. So, Dungeon Jailer, let's move to combat.
Right.
What shall you do with his attack? I can have Aragorn defend.
I think that would be quite nice.
Okay, so let's go ahead and have Aragorn defend. And the shadow card is Eyes of the Forest. And this is a magnificent card to have be a shadow card.
Indeed.
So maybe we'll get out of this one yet.
Yeah.
So, Dungeon Jailer's 2 attack does nothing to Aragorn's defense, and what are you going to be doing to retaliate?
I need to ready Gimli with Unexpected Courage.
Okay.
I need to do
attack.
I need to do a total of 8 damage, right? And Gimli's
He's
swinging
got
for 5, and then Legolas makes it 8, though he would make it 9 with his blade, so that's more than enough.
Perfect. So Dungeon Jailer is going to be killed, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Control V to add that guy to our victory display, and that is worth 5 victory points. Like I mentioned, you and I do not care about score. It's kind of a bizarre, broken concept, but anyway, victory points mean that if we were to play, a 2-hour-long video and have to reshuffle the encounter deck, we'll never have to see him again.
Yeah.
So. All right, looking pretty good so far.
So let's trigger Legolas's and the Blade of Gondolin's ability.
Oh, that's right. So 1, 2, 3 progress tokens, and that means 7 out of 9. So we're not quite finished yet. Once we move on to the second phase, as soon as we successfully put a progress token on that phase, then we can choose to rescue Barivore.
Yep.
But if we do that, then the Nazgul enters the staging area. So. All of that is very good to keep in mind, because it's a nasty enemy.
Yeah.
But shall we move on to refresh?
Sure.
All right, Control R. I'm going to go ahead and make you first player, up my threat by 1 to a massive 37, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a card and do some resources. So something to keep in mind is once we start grabbing these attachments, our threat values are going to be starting to get very high. I've got threat reduction effects in this deck, but I haven't drawn any of those yet. And without Barivore, we don't have too much card draw to speak of. So anyway, what are you going to be doing for planning?
I am going to put the Citadel plate on Gimli.
Fantastic.
And 2 thoughts here. 1, of course, it's just great on him, but should the Hummerhorns not be dealt with,
Right.
It would be enough for him to survive.
Right. And then he would be able to, well, I guess if he were to take another 5 points of damage, he'd be able to swing for 10 and practically kill the Nazgul just by himself, and Legolas could easily do it. So I guess we'll have to keep that in mind as an option.
Yeah. And that is it for me.
Okay, well, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and pay 4 from Eowyn, and I'm going to put into play the Northern Tracker. And I had to pause for a minute because I didn't remember if you played an ally. Citadel Plate is, of course, an attachment, so that is now in play.
Cool.
I'm not going to be using any of my leadership resources.
Okay.
And that's it. Okay. Shall we move on to questing?
Sounds good.
All right, so anything from you?
No.
I didn't figure.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and send Northern Tracker. I'm not too concerned about us. We're probably going to make 2 quest progress at some point.
Okay.
I'll send Northern Tracker. I'll send my 3 heroes. I'll use Theodred's ability on Eowyn. I'll take a resource from Aragorn to ready him. And I'm going to go ahead and do that as it.
Okay.
Northern Tracker is going to put 1 resource token on each of these locations, and that means both tower gates are going to be automatically explored. So 4 less threat from the staging area in 1 fell swoop.
Cool.
All of the objectives are, of course, unguarded, but it's not yet time to snag those. So, staging, let's see here. I've got 2, 6, 7, a total of 8 committed to the quest. Staging card 1 is going to be a Mountains of Mirkwood, so yet another location. Card number 2 is going to be Enchanted Streams, so yet another relatively weak location, and that is going to be a total of 7 threats, which means we're going to make 1 quest progress. If we want, one of us could ditch a card. I'm not really sure how important it is to pass this phase this turn.
Okay.
I suppose there's no real reason not to, so I suppose I could ditch a card.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and get rid of the Favor of the Lady.
Okay.
So that'll boost our willpower up to 9 because of Eowyn's ability, which means we're going to make 2 quest progress, and we now pass to Through the Cavern. So at this point, once we place any number of progress tokens on here, if we want, we can rescue Barivor, but the Nazgul enters play, and it's got 5 threats and a pretty nasty effect.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to travel. And are any of these worth traveling to? So Great Forest Web is going to be automatically eliminated next turn. Enchanted Stream would be automatically eliminated if Legolas is going to be killing something.
Right.
So the Hummer Horns could damage Gimli. He would live through it.
Yeah.
I think we've seen at least 2 Necromancer's Reaches come off.
Yeah.
So he would be at what? Just 1 hit point. And I do have cancellation effects. Do we want to be that risky? It would certainly be an easy way to take care of the Nazgul.
Yeah, I say go for it.
Okay, so shall we travel to Enchanted Stream?
Sure.
Okay, so we will travel there, and this way we're going to be able to get around the inability to draw cards thing. So, engagement. You will auto-engage Hummer Horns and deal 5 damage to a single hero you control.
Yep, I'll go ahead and ready Gimli, but yes, I will add the 5 damage.
Okay, so he's going to be at 8 damage out of his 9 adjusted hit points. All right, so combat phase. Hummer Horns has a shadow card. Shall I block that for you with Aragorn again?
If you'd be so kind.
Sure. So Aragorn exhausts to block. Shadow card is choose and discard 1 attachment from the defending character, which does not do anything.
Nice.
So I'm just fine with that. And, of course, 2 attack, 2 defense. He takes no damage. Aragorn really isn't a character I've used very often, but he's...
Yeah.
I'm glad I've got him in this deck. So.
Although, if I had defended with Gimli, I could have removed the Caught in the Web. Right?
Well, what is it? It says, choose and discard 1 attachment from the defending character. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting interesting case. There's another card where it says discard an attachment you control,
Right.
and I think the FAQ mentioned that Caught in a Web doesn't count, but I guess, yeah, it definitely would have taken care of that, so.
Shucks.
All right.
Anywho,
So, Hummer Horns, 3 hit points. What's up?
I didn't really need to ready Gimli, I suppose, because Legolas is enough to do it on his own, but there we go.
Well, next turn you could get 2 uses out of Gimli.
That's true. Very true.
So Legolas attacks. Of course, the Hummer Horns is killed. It's another victory point creature, so Control V added to our victory display, and that brings us up to an impressive 10, if I don't say so myself. So, not too bad. The Blade, of course, gets rid of Enchanted Stream, well, Legolas does, and the Blade puts 1 progress token on Through the Caverns. At this point, if we want, we can bring, Barovor back into play. We can bring down the Nazgul, but then there's going to be 5 threat in the staging area. So, probably better to wait until after we successfully quest, and then we can circumvent the 5 threat. But totally up to you.
Right, the Nazgul does have 5 threat. Well, I can deal with him, so I don't mind engaging him now. But if you're worried about threat, we can certainly hold off the turn.
I guess I'm just a little concerned that my threat is a little higher than I'd like it to be at 37.
That's okay.
All right, so I guess that's it for the round?
Yeah.
Okay, so Control R readies all our characters. I'm now at 38 threat. If you'd make me first player, please. I will draw a card. Oh, and it is a beautiful card to have drawn.
Yeah, I got a nice one, too.
All right, and I, of course, have gotten 1 resource on all of my characters. So, here's my question, is I got a very strong resource acceleration card. I don't know what kind of lore cards you're sitting on. I could certainly use it on Eowyn. Alternatively, I could save it and give, Barovor a kickstart once she comes back into play.
I don't have very many lore cards, but the one lore card that I do have would be very helpful for Gimli.
Okay, I assume it's some sort of healing effect?
No. Although that would be helpful too, but it's the other lore card that would be helpful for Gimli.
Right. Okay. Perhaps to remove an attachment?
Yeah, that could perhaps be it.
Well, I don't think that's quite as big of a deal. I think I'm probably going to save it for, I'm just going to go ahead and play it now. I guess my big concern is wanting to generate a lot of resources so that when I get some sort of threat reduction effect, I can just play it and pull it back into my hand and play it again. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and do Steward of Gondor on Eowyn, activate it immediately to boost her up to 5 resources, and I'm also going to be playing, let's see, I think I'll pay, is it looking like you'd like to play an ally this turn?
I, again, certainly could. If you have one that is great, you can go ahead.
I've got an ally that I could throw to you.
I don't know. Part of me is sort of wanting to save up to give Gimli another attachment that would help him survive perhaps even longer.
Sure. I think that's a very sound idea. Okay. So, shall I go ahead and take our ally this turn?
Sure.
Great. So, I will go ahead and play 2 for the Wandering Took. Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and reduce my threat by 3.
Okay. And he actually came in handy, one of our previous videos.
He did. And something to keep in mind is that, let's say, go ahead and increase your threat by 3.
Thanks for not even asking.
Well, sorry about that.
There we go.
But what I was going to say is what's really useful is, let's say you're getting dangerously high on threat, even if he's, let's say he's dealing with an attack, you've revealed an encounter card, you know that he's going to be killed, you can trigger that action, swap him to the other player, and that attack will still go through, and he'll die, but you can drop, your threat by 3. So, it's a nice little balancing act that he does. Yeah, so cool. I'm feeling much more comfortable at 35 threat. Thank you very much.
Oh, sure.
So. And no cards from you, I assume?
No.
Okay. So, with that said, why don't we go ahead and move to questing. So, I'm going to go ahead and commit all of my heroes for 7. I'll do the Northern Tracker to make 8.
Okay.
I suppose I'm going to go ahead and leave Guard of the Citadel open, and I will ready Aragorn with 1 resource, and I'll throw a resource to Éowyn. I really don't have very many leadership cards in this deck. I was really relying on just Aragorn being ready frequently, so Éowyn gets that resource, and I'm going to go ahead and commit a total of 8.
Okay.
No questing from you, I assume?
Nah.
Alright, so Northern Tracker, of course, is going to finish off our Great Forest Web with no need to ever travel there, and put 1 token on Mountains of Mirkwood.
Cool.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we actually screwed up here. So I apologize to the audience. For this Necromancer's Tower, I missed a little line where it says you cannot advance to the next stage of this quest unless you have at least 1 objective card. So I, again, apologize. What the standard action for this is I'd have used the raise my threat by 2 to claim this objective. It's obviously free of encounters. I attach it to a hero I control that cannot attack or defend. And by default, I always stick this on Éowyn. She never attacks, she never defends, she exclusively quests. So my threat is actually 37 at the present moment, and a little bit of a mistake there that I luckily caught.
Yeah.
Something to keep in mind is we're not going to be able to finish this final quest phase until we have all 3 objective cards claimed. So, a little bit of a hiccup there. I've screwed up on that many times. Gandalf's map is a pretty inoffensive objective, so I guess with that said, shall we go ahead and reveal our encounter cards?
Yeah, sounds good.
Alright, so hopefully that won't get too many YouTube comments.
Yeah.
Card number 1 is Caught in a Web.
God.
So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this card.
Yeah.
So pay 1 resource, cancel when revealed, goodbye, Caught in a Web.
Okay.
Card number 2 is a Endless Cavern. So Doomed 1, which puts me at 38 and you at 39.
Mm-hmm.
And of course it surges. And the surge card is a Mountains of Mirkwood.
Okay.
So another location.
Yeah.
We're against 5 threat. We're going to be making a total of 3 progress. So any interest in ditching a card, or shall we pull down the Nazgul? So
I don't really want to get rid of any of my cards, though Lord knows as many as I have, I probably won't be able to play all of them, but I prefer to keep my options open.
Right, and I don't think there's any big rush to. So, shall we go ahead and trigger our prisoner rescue?
Sure.
Alright, so why don't you go ahead and flip over Barivor finally.
Yay.
And of course, our prisoners now face up. Barivor has a single damage token, and she may now be used by you. So we've got that potent card draw finally.
Yeah.
Probably not the worst idea in the world to dig through my deck, maybe get some Unexpected Courage, maybe get some Gladrum's Greeting. It looks to me like we've got all the combat ability we could ever hope for from Gimli. And of course, we've still got that 1 ally per round restriction. Nazgul of Dol Guldur's forced effect triggers, and it is brought down into the staging area.
Yep.
So, travel phase. Do we want to go to any of these locations?
Well, the Northern Tracker, at least by himself, unless he gets some of his friends, is not going to clear these out anytime soon.
Right. Unless I draw another.
Right. If we
let's
go
on.
If we travel to the Mountains of Mirkwood that has a progress token on it, and I kill the Nazgul this turn, we'd at least clear that one. Provided Legolas participates, which of course he would.
Though the only thing with that is we'd have to reveal a encounter card.
Exactly.
The one cool thing is it's added to the staging area. It's revealed and added. Never mind.
Yeah.
So
I'm sort of indifferent, I suppose.
I suppose I'm cool to wait.
Okay.
I guess ideally we could do, let's say, 2 cards from Barivor at the end of this round.
Okay.
Then I draw a card, then you maybe have me draw another couple cards.
Okay, cool.
So that's a lot of chances for, say, a tracker, something like that. But
that sounds good.
again, not to say your deck isn't important, but 38 and 39 threat is making me pretty nervous.
Yeah, I agree. That's fine. We can leave it.
All right, so we'll leave it as it is. Nazgul of Dol Guldur. Do you want to engage with
Why,
him?
thank you for asking, and yes, I will.
All right, so he is right here.
Mm-hmm.
So what shall we do? He, of course, gets a shadow card as we move into combat, and the big scary thing with him is if he gets a shadow effect, you have to discard a character.
Yep, but hold on a second. He will be fainted.
Well, that is a very simple solution right there.
Indeed it is.
So, elegant solution, he will not attack. And spoiler alert for everyone, I don't think I have ever in my entire life had his forced effect trigger. It's always been fainted or a cancelled ability, or I just get lucky and draw no shadow effect.
Yeah.
So, with that said, he's not attacking. How do you want to deal with the Nazgul?
Gimli and Legolas.
So, Gimli for 10, Legolas makes 13.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's at -1. He's going to be discarded, so no victory points on the Nazgul.
Kind of
Let's
weird,
see what his...
yeah.
Well, he would have had a shadow effect, so...
And this is the one that would not have gotten rid of the caught in a web.
Right. So yeah, choose and discard one attachment you control. I think this is the same... Well, almost the same as on the Forest Spider in the very first quest, so... it looks...
I was just saying, I was going to go ahead and ready Gimli with Unexpected Courage. That way I can get a few uses out of him next turn.
Sure. And before our refresh phase, any actions you want to take with Beravor or anybody else?
Yeah, I love how you hint ever so subtly.
Oh, and of course we get 3 tokens from Legolas on the Blade of Gondolin.
Right. Yeah, I will let you draw the cards.
Well, thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Oh, wow. Okay, I guess I got some pretty cool stuff.
Okay.
To pull off some pretty sweet questing tricks next turn, maybe.
Okay.
All right. Wow, that's actually really good.
Cool.
For trying to blow through this quest. Cool. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and do refresh. So ready all of your characters. I'm going to go ahead and boost my threat up by 1. I will make you the first player. I will draw a card, and I will do my resources.
And what do you know? Beravor gets a resource. It's exciting.
Okay. So... You are first for planning. I did not draw anything that's, my ideal for, I guess another Dunedain Ranger that I have sitting on the table. I didn't end up getting a threat reduction effect. I could use some more cards. Questing is going to be looking really good. You could throw the Took back my way just because the more characters I have committing to the quest, the more effective I'll be.
Okay.
But, yeah, so what do you want to do for your planning?
Well, were you hoping to play an ally this turn?
Yes, ideally it would be a unique leadership ally.
Okay, well then I will play the second Citadel Plate.
Dear God.
On Gimli.
All right,
that takes up my
all your resources.
Yeah, from there. Yeah. And I don't have quite enough to pay for any of my lore cards yet, so that is all I can do.
Okay, well, and it looks like Gimli is sitting back with a pool of 13 hit points, so that 8 damage, not looking too scary.
No.
Something to keep in mind just for the listeners, maybe the newer players to the game here, is I'll just mention for these 2 cards that I'm showing you right now, this effect, put a card into play, is very distinct from play. So you can actually circumvent the, limit 1 ally played per round rule by using some of these cards here. So for my planning, was there anything you wanted to do with our little Dunedain Ranger lore hero friend? In the form of having a player draw 2 cards?
Is that what you would like to do right now?
It would be fantastic if you wouldn't mind.
There you go.
Much obliged. Oh, I got some leadership stuff. Oh, well, could have been worse. I'm going to go ahead and pay 4 leadership resources, and I'm going to go ahead and put out Faramir.
Okay.
So, if you don't mind, I will take control of my Took again.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I suppose you'll activate that action. I'll up my threat by 3 if you'll decrease your threat by 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might have to have you snag some of these objectives at some point.
Okay.
So,
well, one thing to note that gave me a smidge of pause on putting the Citadel plate on Gimli is now he has 2 restricted attachments. So he can't take... Well, he could take a third
Beravor
restricted attachment. Sure, he could.
Legolas
I would
could.
have to choose to discard one. Yeah.
Right. So we've got plenty of heroes. It's, you know, even though my threat is high, it's not so high that it's, you know, alarming. So,
it's just that key that's pretty nasty.
Yeah. Although realistically, we'll probably wait until we have all of our quest tokens for this quest. Then we'll grab the attachments, and then hopefully we'll be able to push through the 7 quests for the last phase in just one big go.
A big part of this quest is being strategic in when you take the attachments.
Exactly.
Objectives. Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, there's, no reason for us to expose ourselves to the nastiness longer than we have to. So, with that said, shall we move to questing?
Sounds good.
All right. So, let me just glance at this card to make sure it's exactly like I think it is. I'm going to go ahead and commit Aragorn, Eowyn, Theodred. I'm going to just commit everybody. I will go ahead and put 1 resource on... I'm going to put the resource on, I suppose, Aragorn.
Okay.
Although I'm not going to bother with readying him. Just in case we get a stupid king spider, it'll waste the resource anyway.
Okay.
So that resource is now on Aragorn. I'm going to go ahead and play Dwarven Tomb, and I'm going to go ahead and pull a Test of Will back to my hand.
Very good.
And sorry, I'm not going to commit Faramir to the quest. I'm going to use...
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask.
Well, I'll wait until a little bit later.
Okay.
So I'm going to commit all those characters to the quest. Are you going to be committing anybody?
Nope.
All right, so let's go ahead and see what we get for encounter cards. Card number, well, before I do that, let me do my Northern Tracker. All right, so let's see what we get for cards. Card number 1 is a Chieftain Uftak, which at this point, small potatoes. Card number 2 is going to be a Cavern Guardian, which again, not a big deal, but doomed 1 puts me at 43.
Okay.
All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and trigger Faramir, choosing myself. So all of my characters are going to get +1 willpower. That means Aragorn is 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 is what I'm going to commit, which is double what I did last round. For locations, we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Total of 9 from the encounter deck, which means 7 progress. If I ditch a card, that is going to go ahead and put us at...
I certainly could ditch 1 as well.
Well, okay,
if you like your stuff.
Well, I've got some stuff that's not too great. So why don't I get rid of... I'm going to get rid of Guard of the Citadel. So that's going to put me at 17, and that means we should do exactly enough progress if I did my math right.
All
so
right.
2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so 8 progress. We're exactly at 15.
Okay.
And now we're going to be able to pass through this quest if we load up on objective attachments this turn.
Okay.
So at the present moment, we've got these enemies in play that aren't really doing anything. Do you want to use some actions? You'll have to raise your threat by 4, but you'll be able to grab, say, both... well, I guess I could take the key, and you could take the torch, and that'll put me at 45. It'll put you at 40.
Okay.
And you're the first player, so you could take both of these enemies.
Yeah.
And then that way, since you're going to be gaining 3 threat a turn, we're only going to have to deal with that 1 time. So we'll be able to survive if we do that. So do you want to take the torch? I'll take the key.
Sure. And I'll put the torch on Beravor.
All right, so I'll just go ahead and put that over there for you.
Okay, perfect.
And if you want to take control, I'll put the dungeon key on... I suppose I'll put it on Theodred.
Okay.
So I'll boost my threat up by 2. And if you'll boost your threat up by 2, we'll have our encounters.
Okay.
And we'll be able to go ahead and progress to our last phase of the quest. So, Out of the Dungeons Forced is at the beginning of each quest phase, and we're beyond the quest phase, so this doesn't affect us yet. We'll take top card of our deck, put it face down, and it is an Orc Guard that doesn't have any threat value. It's got mediocre hit point, attack, defense. The entire point is trying to push past that very last phase so that we never have to deal with those guards. So we only need 7 progress.
And our ally restriction goes away, which is nice.
Right. So let's see. How do we want to do this? Do we want to travel? It's probably not really worthwhile at this point.
The first one's going to get cleared, which just leaves us with 3 threat and staging area.
Right. And Endless Caverns soaks up more than it is worth. So.
Right.
And again, if I were to draw, say, another Northern Tracker, I'd be able to blow through all of these.
Right.
I suppose, shall we just skip traveling completely?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. So, Chieftain Uftak, Cavern Guardian, both of them are going to default to you. I could certainly do an undefended attack. You could as well. I've got 1 cancel shadow effect available to me.
Okay.
How do we want to deal with these? We've also got a few different actions available to us, so...
Well, they wouldn't both default to me. I would only get 1 if I didn't optionally engage anyone.
Well, that's true. I guess you're very right. So Chieftain Uftak would default to you. Cavern Guardian would come to me. If you want to optionally engage one, then they'll both come to you.
And yeah, I guess I can take both.
Okay. And if you were to, say, lose an ally, you might find yourself drawing a couple cards.
Okay.
So, all right. Those both come down to you. Let's go ahead and assign a shadow card as follows. Chieftain Uftak and Cavern Guardian. And how do you want to deal with these attacks?
I'll have Gimli defend against the Cavern Guardian.
Okay, so Cavern Guardian. And the shadow effect is... Defending player raises his threat by the number of enemies with which he is engaged.
It's only 2.
It's only 2, and at the end of your round, you're only going to raise your threat by 3. But again, it's not enough to take you out of the game.
Right.
We don't care about score.
Yeah.
So I'm going to save my cancel shadow effect.
And Gimli takes no damage.
Right.
And then the Veteran Axe Hand will defend against
Uftak.
the Chieftain. Yeah.
All right. Shadow card is... Defending player must choose and exhaust 1 character he controls, 2 characters instead if this attack is undefended.
Oh, well, that's no fun.
So, I guess because we're not going to have to cancel another shadow effect in the game, shall we get those... Shall I basically cancel this to make sure we get the progress tokens from Legolas?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to spend 1 resource off of Aowen, and I'm going to... it took me a while to find it. Hasty Stroke! Cancel a shadow effect, just triggered in combat.
Cool.
So, bye Hasty Stroke. Goodbye King Spider shadow effects. Chieftain Uftak, of course, kills your Veteran Axe Hand.
Yep.
Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and pay Aragorn's leadership resource for a Valiant Sacrifice, if you want to go ahead and draw 2 cards.
Sure.
Damn shame you don't have Horn of Gondor in play, but no big deal.
Yep.
And now that step 4 of enemy attack resolution is complete, Uftak gains a resource token, and he is sitting at 5 attack value. What are you going to do?
Well, first thing I'll do is ready Gimli.
Sounds reasonable.
Legolas can kill the...
Cavern Guardian. And Gimli can kill Uftak.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, Cavern Guardian slain. Uftak, victory points.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and add 4 victory points, total of 14. And Blade of Gondolin and Legolas are going to trigger to put 3 progress tokens on Out of the Dungeons. So at this point, Nazgul of Dol Guldur is not in play. 4 more tokens and we win the game.
Yep.
Shall we move on to refresh?
Sounds good.
Right, so we refresh, and something special happens this time. So I raise my threat by 1. You raise your threat by 3 because of Dungeon Torch. And then Shadow Key is going to deal 1 damage to Theodred. So we are sitting at astronomically high threats, but the whole point now is going to be to, win the game on this upcoming round.
Yep.
Let's see. I don't think we've switched first player yet. Alright, so it's going to be the bottom of our 7th round. So far, 6 rounds are going to be committed to our score, or contribute to our score anyway. So let's see. I've got to draw a card still. I've got to do my resources. I will use Steward of Gondor, as always. I drew an excellent card. Let's see. I'm going to do my planning. I suppose at this point we should just do a giant quest push.
Okay.
I will pay 2 from Theodred to put a Calabrian stone on Aragorn.
Okay.
So he gains a spirit resource icon, and what this means is he now counts, and his resources now count as both spirit and leadership. He gets +2 willpower, and I'm going to pay 2 to do an unexpected courage on Barivor.
Okay.
So I guess if you wanted, you could have me draw a couple cards just on the off chance that I draw a Northern Tracker.
Okay.
But it's only going to be 2 out of 33. So looks like no luck.
Okay, and then I will ready her right back.
All right. So, what are you going to be doing for your planning?
Well, the first thing I'll do is play an Miner of the Iron Hills.
Beautiful.
Yep.
So, would you like to pick a condition attachment to leave play?
Yep, that stupid cotton web.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in our discard pile.
And,
Beautiful. Gimli is now an ungodly strong hero.
There are no longer any nasty enemies, is that right?
That is correct. In fact, so long as we don't threat cap this turn, so long as all of our heroes don't die, really all we want to do is just commit absolutely everyone to the quest.
Well, basically everything I can't, with the allies I could play, none of them would be adding any willpower, so probably no point in playing them, because we'd want to win in the quest phase. We wouldn't even get to the attack phase anyway.
Yeah.
I think I'm good. There's no need to play anything.
All right. No victory flourish from you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I feel bad having the sneak attack sitting in my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I suppose, shall we go ahead and commit to the quest?
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and send all of these guys to the quest.
Okay.
It's going to be a total of, well, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and have Theodred throw a resource to Aragorn.
Okay.
So it's a dual sphere resource.
Okay.
I'm not going to trigger his ability. I will commit 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'll exhaust Faramir now, so 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. A total of 18 this turn from me.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and discard a Steward of Gondor to boost Eowyn up by 1 willpower.
Okay.
Which makes 19.
Okay.
Do you want to ditch a card just for fun?
Horn of Gondor.
Horn of Gondor. So we're sitting at 20. And who are you committing to?
I will send all of my heroes.
All right. So 2, 3, 4, 5, which is a total of 25. Northern Tracker is going to activate. One of our locations is going to be explored. So Mountains of Mirkwood. After it leaves play, each player searches the top 5 cards of his deck for 1 card and adds it to his hand. So why don't we go ahead and right-click, or in Canada, outside-click. Let's see. Look at
here are some lore cards.
5 cards. So it's going to be add 1 to your hand and then shuffle the rest. Oh, and this is so glorious. I'm going to go ahead and add this card to my hand.
Okay.
All right, so let me close out of this. And are you done drawing your card?
Yeah, I didn't have anything fantastic.
All right, so I mentioned I had Sneak Attack sitting in my hand, and I ended up drawing the perfect ally for it. So, let's see. I guess before we resolve our quest, I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 resource from Aragorn to Sneak Attack.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
And I'm going to go ahead and put Gandalf into play.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and discard my Sneak Attack, For Gandalf's ability, I'm going to go ahead and pick reducing my threat by 5.
Okay.
So I'm going to drop down to 41, and now I will also commit Gandalf to the quest,
Okay.
which brings us to 29 willpower committed.
Okay.
And now that our action window is over, shall we do staging? Card number 1 is a Dol Guldur Orcs. So 2 damage to 1 character committed to the quest. I'll pick Gandalf. Card number 2 is going to be an Iron Shackles. So when revealed, attached to the top of the first player's deck, counts as a condition attachment. Next time that player would draw 1 or more cards from the deck, discard Iron Shackles instead. So I'm going to go ahead and let that resolve, since I'm probably not going to be drawing any more cards. Put that on top of my deck, and at this point there is a total of 5 threat against us, and we are going to pass by 24. So it looks like we're going to have 27 quest progress out of 7. And let me put these on as quickly as I can. And of course that means there's no Nazgul of Dol Guldur in play. We did forget to do that forced effect, so why don't I go ahead and put out an Orc Guard in front of me, if you'd be so kind as to do the same.
Yeah, whoops. Let's flip that back.
Right. So go ahead and flip that guy over.
Right.
Of course, that doesn't make any difference. It's 1 hit point, 1 attack, 1 defense, no
Right.
threat value. It's not going to be attacking us because there's no combat phase. We have all of the objectives attached to us, and at this point, we have won the game, and we have successfully escaped from Dol Guldur.
Yeah.
So, any closing thoughts, Matthew?
I think this is only the second time I've ever played this quest. When the core set came out, I was mostly a solo player, and I think I attempted it a few times, but I knew that it was next to impossible, certainly with the core set alone, to beat this quest. So it's, even though this quest has been out for over a year, in many ways for me, it's brand spanking new. So it was fun. I had to read a lot of the cards. It's funny. I was thinking, we got to remember to do our little Orc Guard things, and then it slipped my mind. And but yeah, I enjoyed it. I was nervous at the beginning. I thought that having that caught in the web would be pretty nasty. In addition to having one of my heroes captured, but it ended up not being too bad.
Yeah, it definitely was a pretty discouraging start. The prisoner is rough. 2 players is not nearly so bad as 1 player, but caught in a web, if I wouldn't have drawn Unexpected Courage, that would have been really, really rough.
Right.
Because, being able to use your hero every other round, if you dedicate all of their resources just to readying them,
Yep.
is really rough.
Yeah.
So, I guess overall, I thought this went great. I was really happy with how my deck functioned. I got an early Northern Tracker, which was fantastic. My cancellation effects were all there when I really needed them.
Yeah.
There wasn't any, awful attachment that I needed to get rid of. The canceling a Caught in a Web was good. I thought Aragorn performed fantastically. The action advantage was huge.
Yeah.
I ended up drawing a Common Cause. I didn't have an opportunity to use it because Gimli ended up being okay once the miner hit the table, but I think things could have gone very differently if, say, Eowyn would have been the prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think it went great, and I guess looking back, how has the core set been, just playing through it like it's new again?
Yeah, a few more thoughts, actually, now that I'm thinking. I thought Aragorn's Sentinel was quite handy, especially with that 1 ally restriction, because I didn't have very many out.
Sure.
I could have played more, but yours were more helpful. I had Horn of Gondor from the beginning. It was in my opening hand. As we said when we were discussing our decks, that was going to help Beravor generate more resources. Though in hindsight, 1, she was the prisoner, so it didn't matter. But 2, not that many allies left to play. So the Horn might not have triggered all that much. I don't know. Right.
I had that Valiant Sacrifice from the beginning, too, and I think only 1 ally left play, which I was really surprised.
Right.
Sentinel was great. I was just really expecting us to be, playing chump blocker after chump blocker, but I guess that wasn't the case, so.
I think the other thing that sort of played in my favor is that I didn't draw a whole lot of lore cards. I think I had 1 in my opening hand, and then I only drew like 1 or 2 more throughout the course of the game. So if my hand had been flooded with lore, that would have been quite frustrating. So in that sense, while I feel like my deck, I certainly pulled my weight when it came to attacking, but as far as beyond that, which I think maybe is the purpose of my deck, I don't feel like I contributed as much. But yeah, definitely a fun quest. I'm glad I've gotten to play it again. As I mentioned, I think in the previous video, I can't imagine this quest with the new Nightmare decks that are coming out. I still think it's relatively challenging, but it should be fun. As far as, what was your question? How does the core set hold up? Or my thoughts?
Guess, yeah, just having the opportunity to play through our very original starters, since I mentioned earlier in the video, at the time of shooting this, Heirs of Numenor is still relatively, hot off the presses.
Right.
What has this experience been like, just playing through all the core sets?
I don't want to venture and say nostalgic because it's only a year or so old, but the game has changed quite a bit. I think that, I've always said that I think the designers and the developers of this game were sort of figuring things out at the beginning. And I think each adventure pack, for the most part, I think each cycle gets better and better. And I think Heirs really shows that. And I'm sure we'll get to those videos eventually. But I think even for these earlier, less refined quests, I think the encounter decks are a little more clunky, not quite as elegant or synergistic, if that's a word, as they are now. I still think it's a lot of fun. I sort of wondered if it would be boring to do these earlier quests. But I actually had a lot of fun, and I think they're fun to revisit. And again, I look forward to playing them again with the new Nightmare cards.
Sure. I think it's maybe a little bit corny to say it, but just playing through the original core set, it really reminds me of how I fell in love with this game in the first place, and how I got so into writing the in-depth reviews and everything else. So I'm just absolutely charmed by all the different effects. There's plenty of delightful little synergies, and I'm excited to play through the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle and beyond. So any final thoughts before we bring our video to a close here?
I think the only other thing that I've enjoyed so much is playing with cards that either A, I haven't played with in a long time, or B, never used at all originally, and that's been a lot of fun. And using the old heroes again, like Aragorn or some of the others, I think has really been a treat.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've drawn Faramir, and it's been a long time since I've drawn Common Cause.
Right.
So.
But they've been good, and that's what surprised me the most. It's not like, crap, I got to play Faramir. Like, he's really come in handy. Not so much in this one as in some of our previous videos, but the cards that we think sort of suck have really, in many, I think, ways, saved our butts in some of these quests. So it's been kind of cool to see cards that are undervalued show their worth to some degree.
Right. But I think that about says it, if you agree. And as
always,
thank you guys.
Do we want to calculate our score, or do we not care?
Oh, right. So our score.
I know some viewers care, even if we don't.
Alright, so now that our calculator is on screen, as I mentioned before, we've gone ahead and entered our 7th round, which means there are 6 refresh phases counted toward our score. That means we've got 60 points from that alone. I'm going to go ahead and add my ending threat value of 41, Matthew's ending threat value of 45. I've got 4 damage on my heroes. He's got 9 on his.
Right.
So I have to add a total of 13. We have no dead heroes.
Woohoo!
It's kind of a miracle in and of itself. Our victory points are an impressive 14, so I think those are all the different variables, and that ends us up with a total score of 145. So I'm sure it's probably not the end-all, be-all, world record-setting score, but there you guys go.
Well, Gimli isn't the most score-friendly hero because you want him to be damaged, so...
Exactly. So, again, no daughters on the table, so...
no exhausted daughters.
Right, exactly. So, I think with that said, you'll have to pardon a couple different mistakes. Again, forgetting to put Gandalf's map on in time probably didn't change the course of the game. Forgetting the orc guards, which, again, didn't really end up doing anything. A lot of different effects to keep track in this quest between the objectives, the quest cards, the Nazgul, and everything else. But... as always, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in to yet another really fun episode of this series. I had a great time. Hopefully Matthew had a great time.
Yeah.
We've finally wrapped up the core set. Our next few videos are going to be taking a look at those core player cards, and then it's off to the hunt for Gollum. So make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more of these videos, and see you guys next time.
Take care.